All right, the Bothell City Council is back from executive session. The deputy mayor wanted to have a point of personal privilege real quick to discuss the departure of Councilmember Sandberg.
I just wanted to take an opportunity, because you didn't hear from us up at the dais, to thank Councilmember Sandberg for all her service. She has been an example to me, and I hope to live up to her. I don't even know how to describe her level of attention to detail, but I admire it, and I hope that I and the rest of us can fill her shoes. Those are big shoes to fill, so thank you.
Thank you.
Would you like to say something to Councilmember Agnew? Now you're going to get it. Sorry, Councilmember Sandberg. Go ahead.
I just want to thank Tris for all of her hard work. I don't think of any of us on the dais comes to these as prepared as Tris does. Now, I'm not saying we don't all prepare. It's just we don't all prepare the way Tris does. She is a remarkable woman and cares a great deal for this city, and you can tell by every time she comes up here. I just want to thank you very much.
A couple more. Councilmember McNeil.
Thank you. I'll echo what the other council members said, but Tris, I will just tell you personally, for me, everything you've ever said to me, I've listened to you with an open heart and open ears, and I truly, humbly appreciate everything you've done for our city. So thank you very much.
So Councilmember Sandberg and I have served for 4 years on the minority council. It was just the two of us, really, and you know, it was sometimes painful, and we had a rough go with the rest of the council, let's say, for some time. But I really, Councilmember Sandberg was always, it's almost poetic how her voice carries. I don't know if other people, my wife tells me all the time, she's like, oh, I just, you know, I like Councilmember Sandberg's voice. You know, it's really clear, and she explains things clearly. And I just want to add one other thing, is that we were in that executive session. I was sitting there thinking, like, man, I'm going to miss her, because there's nothing that gets past her. Not one thing. I'm somewhat frightened, actually, that the rest of us are going to have to pull that weight. But we'll do the best we can. We're not going to fill those shoes. We'll find a way. So thank you, Councilmember Sandberg. So we are back at it here with the consent agenda. There's one item pulled. Is there a motion to approve the remainder?
So moved.
Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councilmember Agnew. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, place your vote. Passes unanimously with Councilmember Spivey and Freed absent. Clerk, they left, so okay. Before our executive session. Next is the item that was pulled, AB 203, which is the fire engine replacement purchase. And Deputy Mayor, I believe you pulled it.
I pulled it because I assumed that the questions that were sent were Councilmember Sandberg's, and she wasn't here to pull it. And I also was interested in one of the questions, which was specifically the staff report seems confusing, because it talks about we have the funds, it's paid for, but we don't have 84,000 short, and there was no response. And so that's why I pulled it. So I'm hoping just for a little clarification.
Thank you. Basically, our asset replacement fund has a bucket of monies. We have a spreadsheet that goes along with it that has an expected replacement cost, and we inflate that every year based on CPIW usually. But sometimes things cost more, sometimes things cost less. So in this case, it costs, the engines cost more. We will make sure that when we put the 1920 budget together, that number gets corrected going forward. But we don't purchase fire trucks very often, and so the price was just more than we anticipated as a city.
But we do have the funds.
Yes, there is a bucket of funds, and the monies are there in the bank, I promise.
Great, thanks.
You want to make a motion? Oh, Councilmember Agnew?
Yeah, I saw that we put our fire engines, and they're out for about 10 years, and then we kind of put them out to pasture as backup engines for a number of years. Do we have anything like that set up for our 8 cars? Because they're running ragged right now, and I'm wondering if we have a policy or should put a policy together saying, well, we're going to keep an 8 car for 5 years or 200,000 miles, and then put it out to pasture and get a new one, because those two are getting much more expensive than they have been in the past.
Am I on that one?
Yeah, I was going to say that she probably needs to answer that.
Yeah, so the 8 cars are on a similar replacement plan that we had the engines on. It's a little less lifetime. It's like a 7 and a 12-year, 7-year front line, and then 12-year total, depending on where. We're working through some logistic issues we have with our partners at District 10 right now as far as rotation on the apparatus. Per contract, we're limited a little bit to how we can rotate those rigs. I'd like to see more of that, so we're working through that. We're talking to them, but that would greatly help, because engine or 842 does get a lot of miles on it, and we're not able at this time really to rotate it through the fleet like we'd like to.
And then we have a truck, and when is that going to be replaced? And that's after, what, 15 years? 20 years max?
Right. Ladders typically go 15-year front line and then a 5-year reserve. So this one's getting a little bit old. We're having problems actually getting parts for it anymore. So we're thinking about that. I don't have a projection. We haven't looked at it critically for replacement time. It wouldn't be next year. It'd be at least 2 or 3 years out.
Yeah, because we definitely have to set some money aside for those, because those go in the millions, if I'm not mistaken.
They do. The new ones do, depending on what you get, how big it is. But the tiller apparatus especially are running over 1.3, 1.4 million now for a larger one.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Sir.
Any other questions on this item? Is there a motion?
I move to approve the purchase of the fire engine from Pierce Manufacturing in the amount of $684,000 plus vehicle licensing fees, piggybacking on a bid solicitation by National Purchasing Partners.
It's moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councilmember Agnew. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, place your vote. Passes unanimously with Councilmember Spivey and Freed absent and excused. Moving, oh, this doesn't have an AB number. Should I make up one?
That's what happens when you do a last-minute addition.
I guess we should make it AB 17-207, Block D, Fourth Amendment to the Purchase and Sale Agreement.
Okay.
And we have the city manager to give a presentation.
Thank you very much. For a little bit of background, the city entered into a purchase and sale agreement with Regency Centers in March of 2015. That was a purchase and sale agreement along with a development agreement. This is related to Block D, which is on the corner of 522 and 527. That parcel has some contamination on it, and so part of the purchase and sale agreement was an understanding that the city would pursue a consent decree to clean up the parcel, particularly the Bothell Service Center parcel. And so over the last couple of years, the staff has been working diligently through the process with the Department of Ecology to clean up this site. Due to delays from working through this process, which is a complicated, very technical, arduous process, we did do an amendment number 1 in August 2015 that extended the closing date of the PSA by a year. We did amendment number 2 in September 2016 that again extended the closing date for the PSA by a year. We're so close. If you recall, we brought the consent decree to you in November. It's now under public comment, and if public comment goes well, we hope to bring it before a superior judge in January, which means we're very close to being able to get the consent decree in place and being able to do the cleanup on the parcel. To be able to do that, we had an agreement, a timeline in the purchase and sale agreement that we needed to complete that by December 15th, 2017. We're just a couple months off from that, and so we did contact Regency Centers and request a 3-month extension. As part of the negotiations, they requested a 6-month extension. We want to honor council's direction that I've been hearing since I've been here, and I believe has been part of the downtown revitalization plan, is to get things built and get things done. And so I didn't agree to a 6-month extension. I stuck to our guns and requested still only the 3 months extension. And that's what we're bringing before you this evening, is a request to extend this purchase and sale agreement, the date of this purchase and sale agreement by 3 months to March 15th, 2018. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions of the city manager? Deputy Mayor?
So I have several questions. Have you seen from Regency a plan as far as design, and are they moving forward with that design? I'm trying to gauge their level of commitment.
It's a very good question. I have been here for nearly a year, and I have seen sort of a rolled up set of conceptual drawings, pretty much the same drawings for the year that I've been meeting with Regency Center. So I would say we have a consistent set of conceptual drawings that have been provided to us.
And this is the site with the mysterious specialty grocer that everyone talks about, and so I'm wondering if we don't approve this amendment, will we still have that option of getting a specialty grocer in downtown Bothell?
Yes, the city is the property owner, and so that's what the development agreement, we entered into a purchase and sale agreement and a development agreement with Regency Centers. And so if the council were to make a decision not to move forward with this buyer, we could negotiate the same purchase and sale agreement and development agreement with a different developer. And so you could absolutely request that this also include a specialty grocer.
And is there, are we losing any time in terms of development if we were to not accept this amendment and then have to go out and resell it? I'm trying to gauge the risk of just kind of starting the process over again.
It depends on who the buyer is, and so again, that can be negotiated in the purchase and sale agreement at the direction of the council. This continued theme of building. We want to get things done. We want to see the downtown revitalization plan come together, and we want to generate the revenue that's been anticipated as part of this downtown revitalization. So we would seek, if the council chose not to approve this amendment and directed staff to terminate this agreement and seek a different developer, we would seek a developer that was able to meet very aggressive timelines.
God, I had a question in my head and I forgot it. I think that's all of my questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Sandberg?
I think you described that this Amendment 4 is also works hand in hand with an Amendment 3 with the purchaser. Can you describe what Amendment 3 is and what the timeline has been that we've gotten a signed version, at least from the developer's end? So
in the purchase and sale agreement, there's an understanding that at some point the city and the buyer and the seller is the city, go for a joint appraisal and appraise the value of the Bothell Service Center, which is a corner parcel, which is the contaminated parcel that we're seeking the consent decree on. And we're to get that appraised, and the buyer then, in the purchase and sale agreement, the buyer may purchase that for $40 a square foot or lesser if the appraisal were to come in for a lesser amount. The city did that, and we issued Amendment number 3 at the end of September, which is then the commitment that the buyer is going to purchase that corner parcel. Money is very important to the city because we need to use that for part of the $4 million cleanup bill that's part of the consent decree. We sent that at the end of September, and so we did not receive that amendment back. So part of our strategy was not to bring forward Amendment number 4 until we had a signed Amendment number 3, so they would commit to this purchase and start a due diligence period of 60 days. And so we did receive that on Friday night, which is why this was added at the last minute to the agenda yesterday, because we received both Amendment number 3 and Amendment number 4 either late Thursday night or Friday night, I can't remember, but very late in the week, after the agenda was published.
Any other questions? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Trying to figure out how to make a motion in the negative. I
Well, you just move to pass it, then we would vote.
move to pass it.
Yep.
Okay, I move the, oh, Councilmember.
Mayor, do we have to make a motion on this? Can we just do take no action on it?
You don't have to make a motion. You don't have to take action on this item.
Would you recommend that we take action? I say it's on our
The normal
agenda.
course is that someone brings the motion forward, and someone could bring the motion to vote on the issue, and then you could simply vote yea or nay, depending on how you each choose.
Okay, so I motion to authorize the city manager to sign the Fourth Amendment to the purchase and sale agreement in substantially the same form as presented.
I'll second it. Is there any discussion on the motion? Deputy Mayor?
I will be voting against my own motion. To me, it seems there's a lack of commitment by the developer. This is the crown jewel, really, of the properties that are for sale in Bothell. This is on the corner of 522 and 527. There's no more important site in my mind in Bothell, and to have a developer that's not committed to actually getting somewhere and doing something is very concerning to me. I think this is not unprecedented. We also decided against extending the P South property due to a perceived lack of commitment toward that developer as well, and so I'm not in support of extending.
Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, go ahead, place your vote. Fails unanimously with Councilmember Spivey being freed, absent, and excused. We're on to AB 17-206, purchase and sale agreement for the back nine of the Wayne Golf Course from Forterra Northwest in 2 transactions using an estimated $400,000 from unallocated park funds. And when we have Tracy to give us a presentation.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight to present to you a request for authorization for the city manager to execute the purchase and sale agreement for the back nine of the Wayne Golf Course using an estimated $400,000 of unallocated park funds. As I begin, I'd like to recognize the hard work of all of the partners who helped to make both the front nine and the back nine come to fruition. So that's all of you, the City of Bothell, all of you, the City of Bothell, King County, One Bothell, and also Forterra. Just a very, very short history of how we got here. Again, I referenced our community partners, but in 2016, Forterra purchased the golf course as part of a buy and hold strategy through the end of 2018 to allow the city time to finance the purchase. Earlier this year, you, the council, directed the city manager to initiate negotiations for the purchase of the property. Last month, on November 14th, you approved the purchase and sale agreement for the front nine. Today, as it was mentioned earlier this evening, we closed, and the front nine officially became Bothell's newest city park. Tonight, I'm here seeking your approval for the purchase and sale agreement for the back nine. So even though we already applauded, I just have to take one last long look at our newest park, which is the front nine. And to get everyone excited for what's to come, here's a great look at our existing trails on the back nine. I took that just the other day, hence the beautiful frost. So, what is the back nine? It's approximately 36.38 acres, which is across the street from the front nine and adjacent to both Blythe Park and the Tolt Pipeline Trail. We are proposing to complete this purchase in 2 phases. Phase 1 is 31 acres and covers the green area of the golf course, not encased in the yellow lines. And that includes the flat area of the back nine as well as the hilly forested section. If you approve the purchase and sale agreement this evening, it's our desire to close this area before the end of the calendar year. Phase 2 is 5 acres, and that is encased in that yellow area. I'd like to point out that that's probably not to scale because I hand drew that on the map. And this would occur by the end of 2018. You should note that a boundary line adjustment is underway with the city's Community Development Department to create that 5-acre parcel. So as part of the back 9 acquisition, staff has been focused on creating a balanced approach. King County will purchase a conservation easement over the entire back 9 in 2 transactions. From this, the city can, in the future, buy back up to 5 acres to create a second active use area. This will save the city approximately $6 million from the previous acquisition strategy, which was using bonds. As a part of this agreement, King County will design, construct, and maintain trail connectors from the Burke-Gilman and Sammamish River trails. In addition, both King County and city staff have been working diligently with the state to transfer the Salmon Recovery Board and the Puget Sound Regional Grants to King County as a co-sponsor. And additional work is ongoing to negotiate land uses, work scope, and other requirements. I'd like to stress that we filed the waiver of retroactivity so that negotiations can be completed in the new year. So what exactly are we talking about here for the phase 1? So for the phase 1 conservation easement, passive recreation such as hiking, birdwatching, and small picnic areas will be allowed, as is drop-in active recreation such as family flag football. We'll also be able to add paved trails and ADA accessible trails, along with amenities such as restrooms. We remain committed to habitat restoration and invasive plant removal. There is one quick addition, this is more of a housekeeping item, to the conservation easement that is attached to the PSA in your packet. This conservation easement is actually between King County and Forterra, but since the city will assume all of the terms and conditions, as a courtesy, we were included in the discussion of the terms and conditions. On Sunday, so just a few days ago, the county notified us that some language on carbon credits was inadvertently omitted from the document and will be added to the final version. Here's the very short version. By purchasing the easement, the county will own the existing carbon credits, and the landowner, again, if you approve this purchase tonight, which will be the city, will own any additional credits generated by tree planting or habitat restoration in the future. So the phase 2 conservation easement. This will be drafted once the grants are secured for the 5-acre area. And again, this is the same area that the city could reacquire in the future for a second active use area. An agreement will be negotiated between the city and King County to determine what types of permitted and non-permitted uses are desired in the area. However, should in the future the city purchase the easement from the county, or purchase any portion of this 5-acre active use area from the county, then it will convert to what we're calling an active use area. And this will have the same restrictions that you approved on the active use area for the front 9. In other words, the following uses are not permitted: residential, manufacturing or industrial uses, office or storage, and any other use that restricts public access by imposing membership or any similar requirements that would prevent public access. So what does this all cost? For the back 9, due to the existence of the conservation easements, in total, it'll cost around $400,000, and that will come from unallocated park funds. For phase 1, which would hope to close by the end of this year, it breaks down to be just around $350,000, $262,000 for land, bank interest fees, closing costs, and a transaction fee to Forterra. Next year, at the end of 2018, the 5 acres as a part of phase 2 is estimated to cost right around $50,000. So in closing, my recommendation to you tonight is to authorize the city manager to execute the purchase and sale agreement for the back 9 with the legal land description adjusted within the boundary line adjustment. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Were those leaves on the golf course
They
the same day?
were.
Okay, just make sure.
I had a great time taking some photographs when I was out there.
Is there any questions of staff, Deputy Mayor?
I just had a quick question about are they carbon credits? What are they? How do they work, and why I know why we want them, but other than, how do you apply them?
So in the case of King County, I'm going to turn it over to Bob Burns for some discussion on the carbon credits.
This is just a curiosity.
Yeah, for the record, Bob Burns with King County. So the act of buying a conservation easement removes the development potential. That can, and it preserves, say, steep trees that are already on the property. That can make you eligible to sell a carbon credit in the future. And it may not be a lot of money. These markets are sort of young and emerging, but it could be worth $50,000 or $100,000 of revenue in the future. In addition, if the city, for example, in the future did a tree planting activity, you could be eligible for a carbon credit for that theoretically, and that either could help you help offset your city carbon emissions, or you could sell that and get some revenue for it. So that's the benefit of sort of staking a claim to carbon credits for preventing development or planting trees, things like that.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Is that it? Is there any other, Councilmember Sandberg?
Does this PSA preclude disc golf courses?
So disc golf falls into an area that could be considered passive or active recreation, depending on how the equipment is installed. And that's something that the city staff can explore as part of the master planning process.
Because it looks like in the staff report, it talks about the restrictions when we use the various grant sources. And it says this will restrict the land use to passive recreation activities such as hiking, bird watching. There'll be some trails that King County commits to. And to me, it sounds like disc golf is not excluded because you're hiking but with a disc or a frisbee instead of with hiking poles. So I just wanted to make sure that such an activity is not expressly excluded in this PSA.
So it's my understanding, and when we get into sort of the different activities for passive and active recreation, this is where the city's partnership with King County really comes into play. So we would put forth a proposal for any work that wants to be done on the land for the conservation easement, and they would approve it. If the disc golf baskets were permanently fastened to the ground, that may not be an eligible activity. If, on the other hand, they were temporary or could be removed, then that might be an eligible activity. But those are things that will be explored as part of the master planning process and additional detailed conversations with the county.
And since we have the county here, maybe the county can weigh in with their thought, since I'm sure the audience here would be interested in what you have to say. And then also if the county operates or allows disc golf courses on other areas similar to this in the county.
Yeah, so Tracy described it very accurately. So the conservation futures restrictions are for passive recreation or active recreation that does not involve fixed sort of infrastructure or is formally scheduled. So as Tracy described, if it's temporary baskets or sort of features that someone's throwing their frisbee at, that can be allowed. If it's fixed permanent fixtures, that is typically not allowed under conservation futures. And then as to your second question, I'm not aware of any disc golf courses that we have on conservation futures funded lands.
There's also foot golf, which is like a golf course but has bigger holes for soccer balls. So is a hole in the ground considered a permanent fixture?
You know, I've heard of that sport. We've never actually had anybody approach us formally to do that activity. I think, as Tracy mentioned, that would be one where if that got proposed, we'd have to take a look at it and see if it's allowed under the CFT policy.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And then you answered my question earlier via email about sort of the payments that the city and King County have made to Forterra that cover staff costs and the like, and you responded that the city will have paid about $165,000 to Forterra for the transaction fee, staffing cost reimbursement, and a portion of the surveyor costs for the boundary line adjustment. Does that include King County's earlier contribution of $50,000?
No, I only provided you the information for what the city has paid.
So Forterra has received, will receive with this agreement a little bit over $200,000 for their services.
I think Forterra might be in the room and they would be better equipped to answer that question. Jean, would you be able to answer us? Or?
Okay. And I also understood there was a state commerce grant as well that offsets costs?
Michelle, would you be willing to come up and address?
Okay. The reason why I ask is because on page 29 of the staff report, it says, in addition, the city may agree in writing to pay Forterra for other possible holding costs, such as maintenance. And I'm always uncomfortable with potential language, you know, may agree in writing, and I prefer that what we're, if we're, you know, passing tonight, agreeing to tonight, are the terms that are codified in the purchase and sale agreement and not future fees that may or may not come about. So I would just mention that to my fellow council members that at this point I'm supportive of the PSA, but I'm uncomfortable about language that that might commit the city to further funds to close this deal. So anyway, I appreciate you answering that question for me. And then you also said that if we wanted to purchase the easement rights on the 5-acre back 9 active use parcel, that would cost about approximately $3.1 million in today's dollars.
That's correct.
And then that would just grow over time.
So depending upon the grant sources that are used for that conservation easement, they will dictate whether or not it's paid back in today's dollars and in future dollars. So that will come as part of the secondary document, the secondary conservation easement.
Okay. And then when we're talking about purchasing easement rights for a fixed parcel, like you've delineated on the graph, the thought is to get active use that might be more like a field, a ball field, versus a disc golf course that would meander throughout the back 9 or the front 9.
So we would be able to do any use on that property that was permitted by regulatory zone, regulatory items such as zoning, or those that met that deed restriction qualification. What we could do with that land would be at the discretion of the council.
And would it be that particular delineated sort of box, or in the future would council have the discretion and the flexibility to, for example, dot active uses area uses around?
It's a bit of a complicated, weedy answer, but I'll go for it anyway. It may be possible in the future to adjust those boundaries, and unfortunately, again, it goes back to the funding sources that are used for the various conservation easements. It would also require King County to be willing to agree to that kind of land area. So it really would, it could depend.
Okay, and so the next, I'm sorry, so with the purchase of the front 9 completed today and the back 9 hopefully soon to be completed, what are the next steps for people to get involved in the master planning process?
So first, we'll actually have a public process for the naming of our new park. That will begin in January, and then we'll release additional details on the master planning process.
Great, thank you.
So I have a couple quick questions, and I think your slides spoke to kind of the city's piece, but I was hoping that the county could get up and explain the amount of financial burden, or not burden, but what King County is going to pay for the back 9 of the Wayne Golf Course in 2018.
So our financial outlay for the phase 1 easement this year is about $4.5 million. And then it'll be about just over $3 million, about $3,050,000, depending on the final interest payments for the phase 2 closing next year. So in total, about $7.5 million.
In a park that's going to be located well within the city limits and not anywhere near an unincorporated King County area.
But this is a wonderful partnership, and it's going to create some amazing opportunities. So we are very pleased to be a part of it.
We're really pleased that you came to be part of it too. But I mentioned this the last time that we met, and I think or talked about this, and I think it's just really important to point out is that we were going to have to take bonds out to finance the back 9 of the Wayne Golf Course. And to the tune of about, so we were a service provider. The city basically, we don't have a bunch of money laying around, $7 million in a coffer somewhere. We would be taxing you way too much. But what we do is we provide services, and those are people. And I think about 90% of all costs and all taxes, revenues that come into the city, we pay for people to give you services. If we borrowed $7 million of bonds, we would not be able to employ the people that we have now and be able to pay those bonds back. So I just want people to understand the brevity of the situation that King County stepped up into and basically made this happen on the back nine of the Wayne Golf Course, because we really couldn't have done it. We probably actually would have done it, and I think it would have been, I'm glad we have another option, because I can look at that option and say, wow, that would have been a really bad idea. Because now we have an option to actually do something that's really good for the city, I think, and I think it'll, well, I'll wait till the closing comments, my bad. Okay, I think I've been so close to this thing, I don't have any questions at all, but I appreciate everything that you've done at Forterra, Bothell, all city staff that have been involved with this. It's been a very involved process to try to get this done a year early. So it's a year early, except for the 5 acres on the back nine, which I think is a testament to the group working together and trying to get things hammered out. So, Councilmember McNeil.
With that, those wonderful comments from the mayor, I would like to make a motion to authorize the city manager to execute the purchase and sale agreement to purchase the back nine in 2 phases using unallocated park funds with the legal land description adjusted with the approved boundary line adjustment.
Second.
She beat all of us. All right, moved by Councilmember McNeil, seconded by the deputy mayor. Is there any discussion on the motion? Councilmember McNeil, would you like to go first on your motion? Oh, he likes to close. Deputy mayor.
I could go first. All right. I'll try to get through my remarks without crying. The purchase of the back nine of the Wayne Golf Course is the perfect ending to 2017. Despite many challenges, we were able to do the right thing. Well, I hope we're going to do the right thing because we listened to residents and followed their lead and found a way to save this land in perpetuity for our children and future generations. This goal would not have been accomplished without many, many miracles, such as Bothell and the many residents who made us all stand up and take notice that we were about to lose something infinitely precious in Bothell, and Forterra and their backers who stepped in and bought the land when we could not. Our heartfelt thanks to King County, who have partnered with us to make this purchase possible through buying the conservation easement of the back nine and allowing us to purchase that easement in the future so that we can use a portion for the recreation for our citizens. And I would be remiss if I didn't express gratitude to city staff who have worked tirelessly behind the scenes to finalize this purchase to occur by year end. Thank you for this great Christmas present.
Councilmember Agnew.
I'll be supporting this motion. Wayne Golf Course is near and dear to all of our hearts. I learned how to play golf there, and I'm sure a lot of people did. There's a different kind of golf that I think is going to be played there. You know, they use this little $6 Frisbee, and they throw it around, and they're kind of cool because the other day when I went out there and they were having a tournament, and I didn't realize the impact it would have on these people. In the past month, about 200 people have played Wayne with disc golf. You know, and they have a little bag that they carry, and it's on wheels, and they bring it, and they drop it off, and they plant it into the ground, and they bring their own holes. Nothing has to be planted. It's just right there. My wife and I, we took our twin grandsons. They're 2 years old, and they walked for the first time on the crinkling little, what do you want, a frost that was on the back nine. They had a great time. They love it. This whole thing has been amazing. The Bothell, Forterra, King County getting involved to save this piece of property for my grandkids, your great-great-grandkids. It's phenomenal. I can't support this enough. I want to thank the staff. I want to thank King County, Forterra, and Bothell for everything they've done.
Councilmember Sandberg.
I just want to echo everything that's been said by the Deputy Mayor and Councilmember McNeil. I think this is a terrific acquisition, not only for the city and for the county, but for the environment, for recreation. And I would say that this is not the end of the process. This is a beginning of the process. And for those of you who have expressed your desires for what you would like to see happen on this property, you have to continue to stay involved. So watch the city website, look for those meeting dates when the park is going to be named and when master planning is going to take place, because it really is your voices that determine what happens going forward. So with that, I'm going to be very happy to support the motion.
So I thought about what to say for this, but I definitely, Councilmember Sandberg nailed that. This isn't the end. This is just the beginning with this property. I've been doing this for about 6 years now on council, and I was on the planning commission for a couple of years before that. And this, to me personally, is probably one of the most, well, it is the most important thing that I've accomplished as an elected official of the city. I think some of you might know this, but there's it's called the WIRA. It's a horrible name. It's an acronym. Chinook Salmon Recovery Council. I chair that for the region, and there's some 20-some jurisdictions, and it's basically half of King County. It goes up into the Cedar River watershed. And the excitement around this project is emphatic amongst that group. This is a huge thing for Chinook salmon recovery. It's a huge thing for the Sammamish River. I grew up, riding my bike next to the Sammamish River. We used to swim in it and stuff, and you can't do that now. And there used to be a lot of fish in it. You can't. There's no fish. Well, I don't think you should eat the fish in it now. And it doesn't have to be that way. And this is a huge, big block step in the right direction to say, we don't accept the way it is now, and I think we can get there with this investment, and there'll be others in the future. And I'm just really excited for our community. I think it's a huge good step for our community, and I'm proud to support it. So, with that, we'll have the closer, Councilmember McNeil.
Thank you, council members, for all your comments. I have a lot written down, but I'm not going to read from what I have written down because I'm going to go from the heart. This has been a long journey to get where we are today. And this journey didn't start with this council, the city staff. It started with some folks from King County 30 years ago. 30 years ago, they envisioned us doing something in the future for the future. And that's what makes this so special. So we definitely need to thank the city staff, the new city manager, attorneys, public works, everybody, finance director, everybody who's worked so hard in our city to make this happen financially for us. Tracy, thank you. You came in here. I know it was a lot to take on when you first got here, but you've been steadfast, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I think the entire community should know what the city manager and Tracy have done to make this come to fruition for us. January 2014, a group called One Bothell was formed. They were formed because of a sign that went up on a piece of property that was going to get developed. And the entire community came out in droves. An entire region came out in droves and said, not in our community. We're going to save this. We're going to do what we set out to do 30 years ago. Now we look back and we heard the word no. You can't do it. There's no money. There's no way it can happen. Personally, I attended many planning commission meetings, council meetings, and I heard we just can't make it happen. Sorry, we just can't do it. Look at us today. We just closed on the front 9. And we're hopefully going to close on the back 9 before the end of the year. I taught my wife to golf on the Wayne Golf Course. I learned to golf on the Wayne Golf Course. My sons have learned how to golf on the Wayne Golf Course. But more importantly, we visit the Wayne Golf Course, the land. We fish in the river. As a kid, as the mayor said, some of us used to swim in that river as kids. I envision, and still do, I envision a day when our future generations can swim in that river. I envision a day when the salmon are going to run up that river so hot and heavy that we're all just sitting out there on a boardwalk watching them come through, and everybody from around the region comes to Bothell because they want to see the salmon coming through there. We couldn't do this without our partners. And I can't say it enough about Forterra and what you do, not only here in Bothell, but throughout the region. To have a nonprofit that's willing to come and step up and work with a small grassroots organization like One Bothell and do what you did and pull it off, it'll go down in history. It will go down in history. And as the mayor said, we're looked at regionally. The first time I met, I'm sorry Rod Dombowski's not here today, but Rod and Garrett Holbrook from King County. First time I met these guys, Rod showed up in cowboy boots, and if you don't know who Rod Dombowski is, he is the person who represents us here in Bothell, and he is our King County representative. So everybody should be reaching out to Rod and thanking him and his staff for everything they've done for our community. We talk about working across boundary lines. Terry Ryan with Snohomish County, a big part of supporting this initiative when we first got started. We talk about our state legislators. Rosemary McAuliffe played a big part in getting us money. Derek Stanford played a big part in getting us money up at the state level. Bob Burns, endless, all the things that you do across the county. You know, something special is the unanimous decision that was made in the committee to save 66,000 acres plus in King County. How amazing is that? And on the heels of it, Wayne Land is part of that. So that's pretty cool. So Bob, thank you for everything you've done. And I know I'm going a little long here, but this is, as the deputy mayor said, this is the final vote I believe we're going to make in 2017. And for some of us sit up here, we haven't missed one vote. Last time the vote came up for the front nine, I said it was the most important vote that I would ever make as a council member. Not true. This is not going to be the most important vote that I make as a council member, but it is a pretty significant one. And it's pretty significant for 44,000 plus in the rest of our region. And so I take it very seriously. As the city manager told me just the other day when I met with her, this is an international deal. This is not a local or regional, it's international. People are going to look at us, they're going to want to come. It's an economic driver for us. As the mayor said, it's just the beginning. But it's a pretty cool beginning. And it's pretty cool to be a resident of Bothell, a lifelong Washingtonian, and I look forward to what we are going to do in the future, not only here in Bothell, but across our region. And I look forward to doing it with all of you. And I thank you so much for everything that you've done to make this happen for our community. And with that said, I would like Louise Miller to stand up, because 30 years ago today, this started, and it's because of her. So I would like to give her an applause. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, I think we're ready to vote. There's been a motion and a second to authorize the city manager to execute the purchase and sale agreement to purchase the back nine in 2 phases using unallocated park funds with the legal land description adjusted with the approved boundary line adjustments. Did we need an amending motion for the whole carbon amendments? We're good.
No, it's, I believe the motion was to accept it in substantially the same form, and so those minor adjustments can be made without bringing it back to council.
I love attorneys. That's perfect. Okay.
Says no one ever.
I was trying. It's Christmas time. I'm trying to be nice. All right. No further discussion on the motion. Go ahead, place your vote. Passes unanimously. So do we have the papers and all that stuff? Okay, so it's kind of a charade, but it'll be a fun picture moment. So when the Forterra purchased the property from the Richards, they actually had a signing thing. So we're going to set up a table down in front here, I believe, and we're going to sign the paperwork. So if you guys want to stick around and take pictures of that, you're welcome to. Can we adjourn and do that?
Yes.
See, it's your nice during Christmas time.
I move we adjourn.
Move to adjourn, seconded. Is any discussion on adjourning? See none, place your vote. Passes, we are adjourned.